Serious, were you ever close to being killed, raped, kidnapped, robbed? If so, how did you avoid it, get away? When I was a young boy, probably 12 or 13, my dad and I took a spontaneous vacation to Duluth, MN, since I'd never been there. I'd honestly never been on vacation before, so I was so excited to experience being somewhere awesome just for the fun of it. We had decided before leaving that we'd save money by skipping the hotel and sleeping in the truck in a rest lot. He'd sleep on an air mattress in the back of the truck, with a topper, and I would sleep in the cab. We found a rest stop in town and went to sleep. At one point in the middle of the night I had to use the restroom, so I left the cab and used the men's room at the rest stop. There was one other guy in there using a urinal. The best word I can use to describe him was soggy. He looked like a mess. I'm pee shy, so I just stood at a different urinal for a few seconds and promptly left. He was blatantly watching me the whole time. I get about halfway to the truck when I see he's following me. I begin to run and so does he. I manage to barely get into the truck on time to lock the door behind me, where he's now pulling on the handle, breathing heavily. I begin to yell the AAAAD wake up, and he pops up from the back like a meerkat. The guy locks eyes with my dad and quickly makes a 180 into a minivan and they speed off. I've honestly never given it all that much thought since it happened. Probably just tried to repress it or something. Having typed it out, I'm kind of shaking a little. TLDR. 13-year-old me almost got kidnapped at a rest stop in the middle of the night. Me and my friend were fishing in a spot near our neighborhood. A man surprised us and said he was a nature photographer. He asked to take pictures of us for $5. We said yes. That was 2 slices, 2 cokes and several games of Galaxy at the pizza place near us. He wanted to take pictures of our feet. Huh. Okay. Then he offered $20 to be naked. This was just around the time the Adam Walsh movie was making people more aware of nutcases. Even kids were getting a little smarter. I politely said no because I was still raised to be a polite, respectful Catholic boy. My friend was trying to get me to do it, but our neighbor was coming down the trail and the guy took off. We told our folks and didn't get to fish by ourselves for a while. If you see my bay feet on the dark web, see if you can get the photographer's name. My 90-year-old dad wants to talk to him still. Did you at least get your $5? We did. My friend was savvy. Money first. Ansel Adams. When I was 9 or so, I went to the bathroom in a restaurant that was in a mall, peed at the urinal, and a big mentally disabled guy was standing behind me when I turned around. He frightened me and said he wanted to show me something, and grabbed my wrists and tried to pull me into the stall. I pulled my arms but he would not let go. When I was 9 I thought he either wanted to show me a giant shit or hurt me in the stall. Just as he was pulling me across the stall threshold he let go of one wrist to close a stall door. I kicked him pretty hard in the leg and pulled my other arm away and got free. Ran out to my family that was eating in the restaurant and sat down. I didn't say anything but they all knew something happened because I was white in shock. And just then the guy was speed walking out of the bathroom leaving the restaurant. My mom said, "What happened?" I just said that guy tried to pull me into the stall and my 70-year-old grandmother jumped up and chased him before I finished talking. They made it to the mall and just by chance there was an undercover mall security guy sitting outside the restaurant and tackled the guy cause my grandmother was yelling to get that guy. You can't end the story there. This isn't complete. What happened after he got caught? We went to the security office in the mall. I was in one room, the guy was in the other room next door. When the police showed up, the guy went ham. We could hear him smashing and punch the wall in the next room. I think he fought the police when they go in the room. I told the police officers what happened. The restaurant gave us our meal at no charge and a gift certificate for $150 I think for a being brave kid, and the mall security gave me a couple vending marking toys from the $1 vendor thing. Not sure what happened to the guy after that. I was 9. My mom handled that, I guess. I've been robbed once, mostly because I got lost and walked into the wrong part of New York on my own, not knowing that I should steer clear of that area. Was threatened by 2 people with knives, handed over something like $200 I had on me. They didn't believe that I didn't have anything else. I had a cell phone and a watch. but both were of the $10 Walmart variety and they didn't want those, so they rifled through my pockets and took my passport, tore my t-shirt in the process, pushed me into a wall and then scrammed. Luckily I didn't have anything worse than a few scrapes and bruises. I made a report to the police, got told I was an idiot, and then went to the German embassy, where I was also told I was an idiot but at least got a new passport. What part of NY? Holland. I was once robbed at Knifepoint. I'm a pretty tall guy, 6 feet 2 inches, but I was pretty skinny then. I had just bought Worms for the PC and Menswear Nuisance album. Was talking the escalator down on Argyle Street in Glasgow. Guy comes up next to me and asks me for the time. I tell him I didn't have a watch. He then pulls out the knife, probably about 3-4 inches long, and says give me the bag and I hand him over the bag. We are now at the bottom of the escalator and he asks me if I have any other money. I pulled out a load of change from my pocket and give him that. He asks if I have anything else. I say no. I then ask him if I can have my train fare home. He gives me 50p and says what do you need? I said I needed the £1, meaning swap it for the 50p, so he gives me that as well. He then tells me to walk away and he goes back up the escalator. Mugged and got a £1.50 refund. I don't think there was a conductor on the train so I kept my £1.50. Some sick tried to rape me on a jogging trail. Thankfully he was a bit smaller than me, skinny and in piss poor physical condition, and clearly wasn't anticipating a fair physical fight, because I ended up beating the shit out of him before he did anything really awful. I can't overstate how lucky this was. I'm no athlete or martial artist, just a woman built like a linebacker who learned basic self-defense from my dad, and believe me I was thanking my lucky stars for it at that moment. Because of the adrenaline rush at the time I didn't really process it properly and wasn't panicked in the least. I was mostly worrying about all the 12-year-old girls I'd seen on that trail playing Pokemon Go that day. Took a few weeks to sink in how badly that could have gone for me and I still get really uncomfortable when I hear about girls getting raped or murdered on jogging trails. Some guy tried to rape me when I was a freshman in college. He wasn't the most physically fit guy either, because tiny little me, 95 pounds and not even 5 feet tall, kicked his ass. I can't remember where I learned it, but women have very powerful leg muscles. When he got on top of me, I positioned my legs in such a way that I could flip him off and then I started fighting. He didn't fight back. He started to cry and apologize saying how he was awkward with women and he didn't mean it. I should have called the police but I felt sorry for him so I told him to stay in the bushes until the sun came up, and I'd be watching from my window. If I saw him come out I'd call the cops. He never came out but in retrospect I totally should have called them anyway. I left El Salvador to live in the US when I was 13. Last year, now I'm 25, I visited for the first time. El Salvador is known as a country with gangs pretty much everywhere. So one time my grandma wanted to get bread for breakfast so I insisted to get it since the place was a 5-minute walk from the house. When I was on my way back home at least 6 kids probably around 15 years surrounded me, all of them with a gun. They asked what I was doing in their territory because they've never seen me before. I told them I was just visiting my grandma and I came from another town. One of them called I guess their boss or something to confirm I was related to my grandma. Luckily my family is well known in that area so one of the guys said I could go but not to go out alone because if it wasn't for my last name I would have been dead. I was leaving a shopping mall with my wife and saw a homeless guy walking through the parking lot. As we're loading our stuff into the car, I decide to give this guy a few bucks. I'm pulling the money out of my pocket as I turn around and he's very close to us walking with purpose towards me with a big effing knife. I just stuck my hand with my money out to the guy as everything slows down. It was pretty automatic to be honest. He stops, takes the money, says thanks and turns around, concealing the knife in his jacket as he walks away. I don't know how it would have turned out if I didn't decide to give him money. I don't know how it would have turned out if I didn't turn around. It took me a while to get over that one though. I did call the cops and gave a description of the guy but by the time they got there he was already gone and I don't know whatever came of it. One time I was traveling out of state. Me and my family went to Las Vegas. I was 12 at the time and we stayed in a very child-friendly hotel without a casino. There was multiple big pools and one of them had a volleyball net where I spent most of my time. I met this one boy who was 14-15 who we will call Mark. Mark, at the time, was very touchy. He would grab my waist and pull me closer to him and he would grab my hand and take me to another pool and pull my legs. At first I just thought it was because he was a touchy person naturally and I didn't let it get to me very much. He was very kind and funny at the time. Me and Mark ended up meeting another guy who was 13 and who I am still friends with to this day. His name will be Joe, and all three of us hung out during our free time. On my last night I was gonna be there, we all met up in the upstairs lobby, which was dead. I sat alone on a chair at first until Mark came up to me and forcefully pulled my arm to drag me to sit by him. I sat with my legs up my chest, and he pulled them to besides him. This is when I started to feel uncomfortable, and Joe noticed. He suggested we go to the balcony to look at the view. So we went, and I stayed by Joe for most of the time until Mark pulled me away and said he wanted to show me something. He took something out of his pocket and it was a condom. Me, a virgin 12-year-old, got this sinking feeling in my stomach and I froze in shock. He said want to do something with it. I shook my head no. Then he tried to convince me it would be so fun and feel so good. Joe came over and asked what we were talking about. Mark grabbed my wrist and said we wanted to go inside cause it was cold. We went inside and things cooled down a little. Mark was still very touchy and was increasingly touching me in worse places. I stood up for a second to get something and he slapped my ass really hard and said mine. I told them that my mom wanted me to go back to our hotel room now and Joe waved me goodbye and said goodnight. While Mark on the other hand gestured to his pocket, where the condom was. I shook my head again and said bye to both of them until Mark chased me down and pulled me into a hug where he placed his boner on me and didn't fail to grab my chest. I told him firmly I needed to go back to my hotel room. I eventually pulled out of his grasp and went to my hotel room. Later that night, midnight to 1, Mark came to my hotel room. He must have watched me go into it and said that he really wanted to try something with me. He grabbed my hand again and tried to come in. This is what scared me the most. My two younger brothers were sleeping and my parents were down in the Las Vegas Strip. He tried to push in the room and I told him I was tired and wanted to go to bed. He said what he wanted to do wouldn't take long. I was almost crying because I knew what he was trying to do. I knew what would happen if he came in. I told him that my parents were home right now and that we could try it tomorrow. I promised that we could try it tomorrow if he left my hotel room right now. He agreed, but he said that if I didn't follow through he'd find a way to make me. He left and I shut and double locked the door. I couldn't sleep that night at all. My family was leaving very early in the morning, like 5 AM, and I was revealed that I didn't see him on the way out. Thanks for watching. Please consider liking the video and subscribing if you enjoyed.